Okay. Okay. All right. Everyone. Ooh, hold on. Okay. Hello, everyone. Um, I was in the middle of creating something, just a simple motor mount for a personal project, and decided that it would be a good example to show kind of my thought process in how I design things in CAD. So I also encourage you to look at this link. This is in the the slides that we'll be sending out shortly. 24 years of model mania in SolidWorks. So this is SolidWorks is another program just like Onshape. Um, it's kind of widely used. Um, and they have this competition every year where they have some, complicated part. Um, and so you can look at, you know, the drawing of it. And so you get an engineering drawing like this with all the dimensions. Um, and and you basically have to design it in CAD into a 3D thing. Um, and the thing about this is you can stop it right there, right? This is good practice, especially when you're starting out. But it's supposed to instill uh, best practices as well, right? So this is whoever makes this the fastest from this set of drawings wins. And then they go ahead and they change um, some dimensions, some key dimensions in these parts. Not a lot, but enough where, if you're doing some kind of hokey things, it's gonna be it's gonna be difficult, right? And so we want to structure our code, our features in a way that if we end up needing to make design changes in the future, if you're whatever you're designing needs to be changed, this is engineering, of course it does, probably will be, then you can do so easily, right? So this is the second phase modifications that, you know, and so you get to use the part that you created here, and you're given this new set of drawings with these three new critical dimensions, and so um, again they grade you on how fast you're able to change this thing, right? How robust your model is really, right? Because you can see, if this height right here is 4.5, um, it used to be 3.35 inches. These are in inches. Um, if you end up doing some weird things, um, a lot of constraints will break, and it'll just show up as an error, and the part will seem to disappear, right? I notice this a lot in Onshape because it has a lot more stipulations for its features. But just something to keep in mind. Anyway, I'm not gonna go through. So a great resource though. There's been started in 2000, um, back before I was born, and so they've been doing this for a while now. And so they have every single year. Um, they have the instructions that you get, the second phase modifications that you get, and they have a solution video, which is really kind of the great resource because you can click on this. It's just on YouTube. Um, and so you can, if you just don't know how to make this part, right? Um, you can go ahead and try to. I encourage you to try to solve these yourself. Just the phase one is fine. And not even in CAD, right? If you just look at a certain part and just think about what basic shapes make this up, how would you do this if you had to, what features would you use? What planes would your sketches be on, and all of that, right? Um, this looks like, oh, okay, well, there's a circle pattern here. There's looks like a pretty simple extrude here, and then you cut into it. And there's a ton of different ways that you can do, uh, all of these parts. But these videos give you one example of of how to do it. You can just go through and see, okay, well, yeah. This is in SolidWorks again, not Onshape, but the basic, you know, um, basic features should be almost all the same. Um, if if they're using if they're using a feature that you don't that is a little different in Onshape, you can always look up. There's a ton of resources for Onshape as well, so you can look up. Why is my circular patterning not working? Why is my trim working differently in Onshape than it does in SolidWorks? And you can figure out how to use it like these guys are using it. Okay, sorry, that was a lot of words, but yes, this link, I mean it's a pretty short URL, but I'll send it out and I'll send these slides out and it'll be in the back of those slides, very end here. There's this. There's also uh, more practice CAD. I haven't looked at these yet. We're gonna fix the request or the permissions for this. And this is some practice, I believe, from CVHS actually. So yeah. For now, I wanted to do kind of a similar thing as these things, but these are a little complicated. Um, which is good, but I wanted to maybe tackle something that's a little simpler right now. So I'm gonna title it something other than untitled documents. I'm gonna give it a label. Um, because I like actually how Onshape labels these things. Um, okay. Well, never mind. I won't do that now. You should get in the habit of creating folder directory hierarchies and labels and all of that. It makes things a lot easier. But for now, it's just a part, or it's just a document. Um, and so we always start out with this top front right. By the way, anytime I click, hopefully it shows up here. So you can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm also going to try to talk out loud, but that's where it is. And so again, we're always going to start with a sketch. So kind of the maybe some context. Um, the part that I'm making is I've already printed a prototype of, but I need to reprint it because of a few design changes, and I had started this part in SolidWorks, and so now I'm gonna, I could import it into Onshape and all of that, but right now all I want to do is just remake it in Onshape so I can parametrically edit it and all of that. So it's not this bottom bit, but it's just this top bit. Basically, I have a motor right here that I want to use. I'm going to attach this. I'm going to attach a wheel to it, not this one. Um, and I mean, that's about it. So it's got two mounting holes in the front here, right? It's got this kind of recess here. Um, and I want to insert, uh, put in some heat set inserts. I don't know if you can see that. Um, so that I can attach it to other things. Not important really right now. I just want to give you some context. I'll turn that off. So let's get into it. I'm gonna actually draw out the motor itself right now, just to give you kind of an idea. It's this motor right here. Oh, When I'm designing these things, anything really, I'll have a pair of calipers next to me. Um, Even if I don't need to take direct measurements, I I like to have them, there to give me a sense of what is 10 millimeters, what is, 15 millimeters, whatever. Sums up. Sorry. Okay, here it is. It's got some some voltage, some power specs, and some other stuff here. So let's see. So I'm going to choose the front plane. Um, Front right are, kind of relative things. It doesn't really matter. I'm gonna choose the right plane actually. All right. No, I'm not. I'm gonna choose the front plane. Sorry. Okay, front plane. Um, so right now all I've done is done nothing. This is the beginning of the document. I click sketch, and again you can hit Shift S as well. It's the same thing. Hopefully that displayed here. Um, so that opens up a new sketch, and then I'm gonna click the plane that I want to sketch it in. And I'm not gonna, I know it's kind of annoying to have this thing kind of floating around here, but I'm not gonna click check because what happens when I click check is it just has that sketch, right? But now I'm in the regular kind of toolbar. I'm not in I'm not editing that sketch. So I'm gonna double click to edit it. So now we're in that sketch again. Um, we're sketching on the front plane. Whenever this thing is blue right here, it's got a little dialog box here. It's telling me this is what input it's looking for. So we're gonna give it an input, which is the front plane in this case. I don't know what that means. Show constraints, shows constraints, shows overdefined. But we've talked a bit about what overdefined and constraints are. Um, I'm gonna leave those as they are right now. So I'm gonna make a line. First of all, I want to look at kind of directly on what I'm sketching on, right? Sometimes I don't, and sometimes I'll leave it like this, and I can draw lines just fine in here. And you have to remember that this is all in that plane, right? Even if you're not looking on that plane like that. Um, Control Z. But for now, I'm just gonna look. So I'm gonna right click on the front plane, and I'm gonna click View Normal to, or actually, I'm gonna right click anywhere, and I'm gonna say View Normal to Sketch Plane. Right. That's gonna show us this is the sketch. This is the plane that we're in. So I'm gonna make a line. Right. L is line. Um, and I'm gonna kind of I don't know the best way to do this. So this is how I'm doing it, but I'm gonna make this a construction line. Right. It's not super important that it is or not, but I just um, prefer it like that, right? And so I'm going to revolve around it. This is not centered at all here, right? It's in the front plane, but this blue means that I can drag this anywhere. It's not defined, right? The length isn't defined, the position isn't defined, the angle is defined. That's the only thing it's defined. It's vertical or it's horizontal. Sorry. Um, but that's about it. So it's a construction line, and now I'm going to make a non-construction line, and it's going to be the dimensions of the motor, right? So I like to, oops, sorry. So this line became unconstructed. I think I clicked on it by accident. So now, yeah, it's a construction line. This is what we're actually going to, I'm going to click escape. And this is what we're actually going to do. One thing I noticed, it's very annoying to me coming from basically any other Windows software. Um, it, Onshape will automatically select everything that you click, right? So the one next to my cursor shows that it has one object selected. Now it's got two. Now it's got, oops, sorry. Now it's got three. Now it's got four. And now it's got five as this area, right? I I'm not holding shift down or anything when I'm doing that. And a lot of you guys will it's a little unintuitive, so a lot of people I believe will have the same trouble. Um, to clear your selections, you can right click an empty space and clear it. You can just click as long as you're not about to select something else, right? Like if I clicked here, okay. Um, let's say I have all this selected. If I click here, then I'm clicking on another plane. And it's just gonna, it's something else that is selecting. If I click here, it's something else, right? So if you zoom out enough and you click an empty space, then it'll clear everything. Or if you click spacebar just once, it'll clear it. It's a little bit annoying, but now that I've uh, found that you can click spacebar, it helps a little bit, I guess. I don't know why they do this. There's no setting to turn that off. Anyway, here's a rectangle. Here's a basic shape of my motor. Right? Kind of looks like that. Kind of looks like that. You'll notice that when I drew this line in, you might have to happened a little fast, but it snapped to this constraint, right? If you go through your constraints, well, what is that one? That's midpoint, right? So what it's saying is anywhere I move this, this stays in the midpoint. Anywhere I move this, it changes this because this point is the midpoint of that line, right? There's happening again. Space. Okay. So that's not what I want. In some cases, you might want that. I'm gonna click on that constraint and I'm gonna just click delete or backspace. And now when I drag this, nothing happens. It's actually not even coincident, right? And so if I'm here, if I want this to be coincident with this line, but I don't want it to be in the midpoint, all I do is just drag it over, and once it's highlighting orange and it's this constraint is popping up here as a preview, then I can let go, and now you can, it filled in that constraint for you. So if I drag this, now it's coincident with that. Okay. So I like drawing lines before I dimension anything. Maybe it's a little confusing. You can always mention, do it the other way around. I drew this rectangle out and I could have dimensioned it right away. Again, I drew this rectangle with 4 lines. You could have also done corner rectangle, pressing G. We could have done that for every one of these actually. So it doesn't matter, same thing. I'm gonna click dimension and I'm gonna look at what are my dimensions. And so I see the length here is 47. I have the motor in front of me too. So these are the parts of the dimension that I really care about. It's 47 millimeters long. This is 10 millimeters. Oops, sorry. So 47 millimeters long. And so it kind of scales everything. So this bit that I wanted was 10 millimeters in diameter. Okay. So I only want this whole thing is going to be revolved. And so I want the radius. And so it's 5. And now this thing is kind of hanging, right? But it's still, this point is still coincident on that line. It's just this line doesn't even, if you imagine this line extends forever, right? This is a line segment. So we're going to drag it back down because our diameter of this thing here is less than that. It's going to be, I just know it off the top of my head, is 2.3, and then again divided by 2. Right? There's other ways you can do that, right? If there's things that if I want to keep this the same always, or sorry, that's a bad way to say it. If I think this is going to change at all anyway, maybe for some tolerancing thing or whatever, well, I'll show you that in a second. Sorry. Give me 1 second. I got ahead of myself. So this is 10 millimeters. This little ledge right here is 2.7 millimeters. Again, these, maybe not incredibly important, but I'm gonna add that in anyway. And the last thing I'm gonna add is that this is 12 millimeters. We also know that these vent holes or these mounting holes are 16 millimeters away from each other, centered on the center. I'm not gonna really add those. I keep doing that. Add those into this drawing, but I'm definitely gonna put those into the mount when. Well, I don't know. Yeah. So, just gonna finish dimensioning really quick. This is 5. This is 2.7. Remember, we don't have to divide this by 2 because it's not being revolved in that direction. This is 12. Now, actually, I believe it's from here to here. Yeah, okay, that's fine. This is mostly constrained. Okay, I guess this isn't constrained, and then some of these aren't constrained. Uh, Sorry, it's really just this dimension, but it's still blue because the position isn't constrained at all. So if I sorry, let me drag this down here. The last one is 27.7 millimeter total diameter. So dimension, oops, sorry, dimension. This is 27.7 millimeters. I don't ever type in millimeters, well, because that's those are the units, right? The whole point is you work in one set of units and that's it. If I wanted to, say I measured this in centimeters, I could type in 2.77 centimeters, and it'll change it, update it for me, and it'll keep it in centimeters in this case. I don't I don't want to do that in this case, but if that is an option, you could type in 2 point. You can also use equations in this. So 227.7 divided by 25.4 inches if I wanted to. And that still stays as 20 blah blah blah, but this is in inches. I don't know why you do that. Yeah, sometimes it's useful for nominal things. But I'm just gonna 27.7, and without any units, it's in millimeters. Okay. Now again, so I'm escaping, so I'm in selection mode. This still moves all around it, but none of these move relative to each other because this is all dimensioned. I can move this closer to the bottom, whatever. I'm letting it free float a little bit. I don't really care. I'm gonna click revolve. I can either click the check mark and click revolve and then select, the stuff I want, or I could go directly from the sketch and just click revolve. And it'll already fill that in for me. And now this is in red, and so it's telling me to select, or sorry, that means it's missing. So I'm gonna click on that, and it's telling me this is the input that it's looking for right now. So I'm gonna select the axis to revolve around, which is this bit. I didn't actually need that bit. I could have just used one of the lines from this rectangle, right, this bottom line, or any of these, really. But it's just, I think, good practice. Faces a sketch, blah, blah, blah. Okay, So this might look like a motor. It doesn't look like this motor because, right? Because I forgot to divide by two in this sketch. So I'm going to double click on this sketch one. And then remember, this is going to be divided by two. And so now it looks much more like what we have here. Okay, that's it for this motor. I talked a lot, so really all this takes is a minute or less. So that's one sketch, one revolve. Might want to go back and title this, rename this um, revolve profile for motor, right? This is part one. I'm gonna create different parts in this, so I'm gonna rename this motor, right? Revolve one. I don't know if you can keep, I guess. So there's that. This is all this is doing. I don't need this, right? I'm not gonna 3D print a motor out of plastic. Um, this is just giving me kind of visualization for the part that I'm actually going to make, right? So you don't need to do this at all. But it helps if you have some simple, some dimensions that you already know. It helps to kind of put this into your CAD. And like I said, it's very simple, one sketch, one revolve. So um, can't hurt. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new sketch now. And I'm going to work off of the top plane. No, I'm going to work off the front plane. Um, oh, sorry, I just did. Okay, we're still in sketch one because sketch one doesn't exist here because this is not called sketch one anymore. Um, all right, and I'm going to view normal to sketch plane. So the only real way, sorry, the only real way to mount this is with those two mounting holes, right? They're M3 bolts. They just go directly in there. Um, sorry, I can kind of zip tie the back of this or something. But for now, that's what we're going to focus on. So if I have this sketch, I'm going to use a line. I'm going to make an L. It can be anywhere again. I'm going to make it here for now. Right. So a lot of these constraints are already done for me, right? This is always going to be vertical or horizontal. I keep doing that. And this point is always going to be in that line, right? This, however, I didn't really zoom in and do it nicely. So I could have, I'd come here. Let's pretend that this was me creating it for the first time. If I zoom in a little bit, first of all, this can snap to not vertical if I want that, which I don't. So I'm going to find vertical again, and this little icon pops up. And then I'm going to kind of hover over this, and it's going to show that, that I'm in line with it now. And so now this line is vertical, like with the world, and this point is horizontal with that point, right? So I'm going to click there, and then if I click there, then this line is locked in as horizontal now. If I try to drag this point, the whole line moves, right? Which is what I want. If that wasn't the case, right? If like before, I was just doing this really quickly and it's something like this, I can easily go ahead here and click on horizontal. It's H. I'm going to click on that line. And now that line is horizontal. Same exact thing. I'm just showing you a few different ways to do it. Okay, so we have a part. I want to dimension it, or we have a drawing. I'm gonna dimension it. So I'm gonna make this 2 millimeters. 2 millimeters is a good um, kind of what I like in terms of thickness for printing, 3D printing. You can go down to as thin as 1 millimeter, but it's flimsier. 2 millimeters is good. It's still pretty small, but it's good enough in terms of rigidity and all that, and big enough that the printer can easily print in that fine detail. I'm gonna make this a little thicker. So the reason I made that 2 instead of 3 or something bigger is because this is 2.7, right? So I could maybe make this 2.7, 2.5 at least. But this little step right here is 2.7 millimeters. Um, I don't want to waste any of this shaft length, right? So I want this to be sitting a little proud, a little to the left of this bit. Um, 2.5. I'm going to see dimension this. Okay, sorry. So I can go ahead and keep dimensioning stuff. And I can type in numbers or whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and exit that for now, so that's still saved there. But I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna change this revolve profile. This right here, 27.7 divided by 2 gives you the radius. I want to say hashtag um, motor diameter. I don't know if it'll give me a space there or not. Okay, it doesn't like the space. Um, oops, sorry. Hashtag motor diameter, and this thing pops up that says new variable, right? So how you call variables in Onshape is hashtag, right? If you just type in motor diameter, it doesn't know what you're talking about. Um, but the name is motor diameter, right? Motor underscore diameter. The value of that is actually 27.7, right? So this is a variable. It is a length, right? It could be a number, it could be, anything else, but it is a length and its value is 27.7 millimeters, right? That's what we looked up right here. I'm gonna click OK. That shows up here, right? So this is hashtag motor diameter. That's the variable. And so now I can use this variable anywhere else. Right now, I want to use it here, and I want to use it. I can say hashtag motor diameter divided by 2. And then it gives me the same result as before, right? But now here, what happens when I change the value of this, right? I don't know why that just, well. So when I change the value to say, let's say they measured incorrectly or there's some manufacturing defects, and this is actually 27.8. Well, I can change that, and now I can go ahead and look at this, and you might not see a big difference. But if I measure this now, this circle, the diameter is now 27.8 instead of 27.7, right? Small changes, and it's not a huge deal for this. But what happens when I want to go here? Now I'm editing sketch 1. I'm going to look at it normal to the sketch. And I say, okay, well, this whole thing, you can imagine this as this cylinder is sitting on top of this L shape, right? Well, then I guess I don't need this top bit to go all the way up to the motor's top, because all I really need is 2 mounting holes over here. But I think it'll look nicer, and I also kind of do want that just in case. I don't know. Let's say I do. I can dimension this and I can go, well, that's hashtag motor diameter. Boom. That's updated now. And now when I change that here, then that changes here and that changes here. Right? This is very powerful, the idea of variables. And you can do a bunch of things with that. So if I want to do the same thing for this distance here, 47 millimeters, I would call it like motor height or something like that, or motor length. But I don't really need to because I don't envision referencing that too often. But I'm going to reference it right now just to say that this is 47 millimeters. Right, so I'm working off this sketch was all taken from this drawing, and this sketch is working off those dimensions, right? Everything is connected. So you'll see some black and some blue, right? So this black, the black means if I try to drag it, I can't, right? It's defined. It's fully constrained. The blue means that it is not fully constrained, right? If I try to drag this blue point around, I can do it. You'll notice it doesn't go up and down, right? Because it is constrained a little bit, but it's not fully, right? So if I drag this all the way to here and there's that coincident logo that pops up, suggestion, I can drop it there and it will snap it. Now it's fully constrained, right? I can't move this because this dimension is where it is and this dimension is where it is. So this point is given. If you were to plot this on a graph, sorry. Okay. If you were to plot this on a graph, it would be, negative 2.5, comma, negative 3 millimeters. Right. All right, sorry. Continuing. If you don't want to do that, first of all, you can always delete a constraint, right? So you can hover over what the constraint is referring to, right? So this constraint is showing that this point is coincident to this line. It means no matter where this point goes, it's going to be in line with this line, right? This coincident is saying that it's coincident with both of these lines. If I delete one of them, I see, I deleted the wrong one. You kind of can get lost here. Let's say I delete this one. Now all of a sudden a bunch of stuff turns blue. This is still fully defined. No, it's not. Right, and so this is what we had before, right? So we can drag this like that. Blah, blah, blah. If you're doing something kind of delicate, by the way, you can zoom in and all of that while you're still dragging. So I'm holding on to my left mouse button. If I hold shift, right? So this is me. I've picked it up, left click, I'm holding left click, and then I come here and it wants to kind of, snap onto that. If I hold shift as well, then it doesn't want that, right? So you could put it very precisely. In this case, it's kind of silly to get it very close to the center and not actually on the center. So if I let go of shift, move it around a little bit, it'll go back to snapping. But sometimes you do want that. All right. Anyway, this is fully defined. I don't have anything more to give it. I'm gonna go ahead and extrude it in both directions. Right. So I went directly from the sketch to clicking extrude, so it's already selected part of the sketch for me. I'm making sure that it's in solid and not surface and not thin, right? If I use extrude surface, I can select all of these, whatever. And these are surfaces, right? So people's whole jobs are to design CAD in surfaces. Very powerful tool. When you're creating solid things like like these with right angles and kind of, Nathan talked about organic versus non-organic bodies. Right? This is a very organic thing. It's a right angled L thing. It's going to be extruded both sides, blah blah blah. I don't want it to be a surface, but it is very powerful. People create like a bunch of curves with surfaces, and sometimes that's the only way to get what you want, right? If I went like this, I could extrude just this bit as a surface. So these are surfaces, they have zero thickness, right? That only exists in CAD. Even if you folded a piece of paper like that, that piece of paper has more thickness than these things. I can click thicken and thicken those two, and thicken it however you wanted, and it would be similar, right? Unfortunately, I'm thickening like both of them at once, right? So if I just wanted one, well, I wanted that dimension to be 2.5, if you remember from the sketch, and then I could thicken again and thicken this one to be 3. And it's complicated. Right, because now we have some missing parts here. But these are now solid objects, right? And so I could 3D print these. Sorry, I could 3D print that bit now. But we're not going to worry about that. I wanted to kind of show you what's that option was, because it's very common. Sometimes when you have actually, yeah, this is good. So I'm going to delete this. So we're back to our sketch, right? This is our sketch that we sketched out just now. If I have this line selected right now and I click extrude, it's going to even if it was solid to begin with, right? So now the last thing that this extrude did was solid. Right. I'm gonna exit out of that. If I just have one line selected, right? That's not an area. That's not this. It's just this line. If I click extrude, it's going to automatically assume that I want to extrude a surface, right? It might think I want to extrude a thin thing, right? So this thin, by the way, is basically the same as this surface, except it does the thicken all in one, right? So it goes, this might look familiar. So I could say 2.5 there, and then thin on this one is 3. I guess it's still doing them all together, but there's ways to not do that. Anyway, all we want is solid. So we're gonna go to solid for now. And then on top of all that confusion, there's 4 other tabs to play with, right? So we already have a part in our studio. It's the motor right here, right? We don't want to add to that part. We want this to be a separate part. So we're going to create new, right? If we wanted to cut into that part, then we could select remove. If we wanted to add to it, then it would merge into it. And it would all be, welded together. That would be add. If we wanted to just select some of it, then it would be intersect. I'll explain that a little bit more. That's what people refer to as Boolean kind of. And that's very powerful. But right now we're going to create a new part. And it's going to be this part. So again, it's looking for this input faces or sketch regions to extrude. And I want to just click inside here and give it that. And that's it. We could put, like that. That's all it needs in terms of syntax. For the depth, I want this depth to be the diameter of this whole thing, right? Or I want this thickness to be the diameter of this whole thing. But you know, I want to make it symmetric just because, kind of one of those nicety things. So I'm gonna say the depth is the motor diameter, and all I'm doing is I'm typing hashtag, and it's gonna automatically know, I'm about to type a variable, and so I could, does it want do I is asking if I want to create a new variable, and I could type something else, and that would be a new variable, or I could use the only existing other variable. So, which is what I'm going to do. Right. So I'm hashtag, then this motor diameter pops up, and so I'm just clicking enter. Okay. This is the direction that I want to do it, so that's fine. I don't want any starting offset, right? Just want it centered on the front plane, and it's symmetric. This draft means a draft, right? So basically, in every direction that we're extruding, so basically this plane in this direction and in this direction, right? The X and Z direction, it's going to give a draft of 3 degrees, right? So normally you would come straight out. In this case, you would we're going out. So both this X direction, and also you can kind of see it in Z direction. It's the same way. If you measured that angle between here and the horizontal, you would get 3 degrees. You can also do that the opposite direction, and then so it's the same thing, but inward. You don't want any of that, but I'm going on these tangents. I hope to kind of give you a sense of like, this is a super deep dive into a very simple feature, which is extrude, right? But you can do so many things with it that you don't necessarily need to do, but it's also easy to get lost, right? And so I have to kind of explain all these things so that you don't get lost, right? Because I saw a lot of surface and thin extrudes last time. Okay, this is a preview of what it looks like. So sick. You can click check mark, and there's our part. Right, so that was, again, this has been one sketch, one feature. This was also one sketch, one feature. But we're gonna add to this, right? So this is kind of a little more complex than our motor before. So what else do I need for this part? So I need I need 2 mounting holes, right? And this third hole in the middle that for this little step, right? That's, I guess, the bearing. I'm not exactly sure why this step is there, but they're very common in these small motors. So I'm going to sketch on this plane. You can choose where to sketch. It's totally fine. You can use this plane face of the part, or you can use this face space bar. The reason I'm using this one is because I want to reference from the bottom here, right? It doesn't really help me to reference from this bottom because the motor is going to be sitting flush with this surface, not the very bottom. So I'm going to do that. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to select it, and I'm going to click sketch, right? And so now look at it. It's not even asking for any input because it already knows, well, you had that selected, so that's what you're going to be sketching on. I can go right away and start drawing stuff. You don't have to do it that way. And so that's an empty sketch. And so I clicked the red X, and so now it's gone. If I click the green check, it would still show up here, but it would be empty. So you could double click on it and edit it, fill it up. If I didn't want to do that, I can sketch, or I believe even click L. Doesn't matter. Sorry. And click sketch, and then it's asking again now what plane do you want to sketch in, and I'll sketch that. Right. I'm going to right click and view normal to. Now I'm going to draw some things. So I'm going to draw a circle, right? Because of this geometry, right? So all that was is I drew a circle, I let it snap to tangent to the bottom of this, right? And then I click escape. And so now I can move this circle anywhere I want it. It's kind of lagging a little bit, but every time I do it, it pops back to tangent with the bottom here, right? And I can do this tangent here as well. So that would be find tangent. It's key stroke is T, hotkey is T, and then I can click that. And so now I made that tangent here, and I made that tangent here, right? We know that this here is a square. That side length is equal to this variable, and also this side length is equal to that variable, right? That's just how these were defined, right? And so now this is fully constrained with just two constraints. I didn't even have to dimension it, but that's how it is. If I went back and changed the diameter of this would change to correspond to that, right? That, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to make a line. So if I'm just, never mind. I'm gonna make a line that's horizontal here, but it's not gonna go all the way through the diameter. It's gonna be like here, and then there. I'm not used to this, but I could have pressed Q before I drew the line. I'm gonna do it afterwards, right? So now I press Q, and now I'm gonna press escape. This thing is so so that used to be a line. You can toggle construction by pressing Q over and over again, or pressing this thing over and over again. And then to get out of it, it's just click outside. This looks like empty space, but it's actually selecting the front plane. So, or the right plane, both of them. Front plane. Anyway, the reason I did this is because I want to create two circles here. Right? I want this one to be the same as this one, right? There's a constraint for that. So I'm going to set these equal. So this was highlighted. I selected the equal constraint, and then I click that. It doesn't like, Onshape doesn't like when you select the two things that you want to constrain and then select what constraint you want, right? It wants what you're doing before who you're doing it to, if that makes sense. Okay, so these are both the same. If I drag one, I drag the other, or I drag the other, and they're both the same. So now I wanted to dimension one of them, and I know that this is an M3 bolt, so for now this is 3 millimeters. Then the other one changes as well, right? So I don't need to dimension the other one. In fact, if I do, you can't quite see it. It's very faint. It's grayed out, which means I'm trying to double click and I can't. I can't edit this thing. This this dimension is there because I put it there and it's trying to make me happy, but it doesn't really mean anything, right? It's there for me to reference. It's there for me to measure some things, and so that's good as kind of reference, but it does not help me in terms of commanding it what to do, right? That's called a driven sketch, right? if this sketch changes or this dimension changes, then this again also changes. But you know, doesn't mean anything besides that. Okay. So this whole circle is blue, but I can't the radius or the diameter is constrained. Well, the only thing else that you can dimension in a circle is its position, right? And so this is horizontal with this point right here, so that doesn't move up and down, but it's still moving left and right. And so I'm going to dimension what I care about is this distance from here to here, right? And I'm going to mention that actually really what I care about. This might be, all right. I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. Right? I'm gonna make this coincident here. I'm gonna make a new construction line, which means both of these are selected, and it goes like that. Right? I'm gonna click escape. Now nothing, I'm in selection mode again. But basically that creates two separate ones. And so I can now do the same thing here. You can also just do this one time on one part and then mirror it again um, in this line. I try to stay away from mirroring and linear patterning in sketches. Outside of sketches as features, they can be very powerful. But if I use this, all it's saying that like no dialogue pops up, you know? It's telling me to select a mirror line. Well, I don't have one right now. I can use the front plane as a mirror line, I guess. And then select entities to be mirrored. So I can select that. And then boom. So I can click escape and now that's there, right? So but it's there's no way to edit that thing anymore, right? If I mirror a feature, if I do a feature mirror, which I'll show you in a little bit, that shows up in this tree, right? I can go ahead and I can edit, I can select, the mirror plane. I can edit that mirror plane, I can edit the what entities I needed to mirror and all that. I can't do that here. This is just it is what it is. If I don't like something about it, I honestly just delete it and do it again. I don't know what the best practice is there, but my practice is just to not use it. So that also shows kind of this also kind of shows something more powerful, which is just this idea of using constraints instead of dimensions, right? Because you don't need to use constraints. You can use dimensions, but then one side updates, the other side doesn't, and all of that. So I'm gonna click on this one. I'm gonna click on equal, and I'm gonna click on this, right? So now again, the same thing happened as the circle. Sorry, the circle isn't there, right? And now again, this is independent because it's brand new, but I can easily go here, equal, here, and now it's the same, right? This is 3, so this has to be 3. This is something, and that has to be something. But now we're going to actually define what that something is. So we're going to make this. If you remember, well, actually, so we could do that, right? And we could do the math in our head. Well, the distance between them is 16 millimeters. So the distance between that and the center is 8. But even better than that, so I clicked escape to get out of editing that dimension. I'm going to click on the dimension and click backspace to delete it. But we're still in the dimension, right? So I'm going to click that center point and this center point, and now I'm going to click 16, which is exactly what we had, right? So I want you to think of, there's so many ways to dimension this, right? We could dimension between these 2 points and click 8, make this to be 8. But it's not maybe the precise thing to do. And in most of these cases, we're going to be 3D printing it, so it doesn't really matter. But sometimes, um, you're going to send these off to a machinist, and the machinist is going to machine these on a lathe or a milling machine, and they need to know, like they're not going to be able to get this exactly 16. Like this just says 16. There's no 0.00005, right? There's no tolerance to this, right? And so they need to know, well, how far off of 16 can this really be? Because it's not going to be exact, right? No, we don't live in a perfect world. Um, and if you give them like, oh, this needs to be 8, and it needs to be the same as the other one, well, then they're gonna ask like, oh, well, how close to 8 does this need to be, and how far off can the other one be from this one, right? Because if this it ended up being 7.5 and this was 7.5, this whole thing is 15, but it's only half a millimeter off on each one, right? And they're exactly the same, right? Sorry, I'm getting a little bit into what's called GD&T, which is also a big deal in engineering. But just try to dimension what you actually want to dimension. Don't just dimension what will work based on other constraints. Okay, so we have that. I'm gonna add one more circle in the center for that little step. And remember that thing was 10 millimeters in diameter. And that's about it. This this big circle right here is, I'm not gonna use it right now. It was there as kind of, oh, I wanted to get that center point, and that's how I did it. Um, if you don't use something, you can make it a construction line in case it gets confusing and like when you're extruding, right? Because this if I try to extrude this, it won't extrude. Um, right? It doesn't see a difference between this part and this part because this is a dotted line. That's all a construction line is. Doesn't really matter, but sometimes there's a bunch of stuff, so you want to keep it clean. I don't know. Construction lines can be very useful. In this case, I actually don't want a construction line right now because I'm not worried about that. And I am gonna end up using it eventually. But for now, so we're in this sketch. I'm gonna go straight from the sketch to extrude, and see a bunch of stuff is selected. So I'm gonna just start from scratch. When in doubt, you can always start from scratch. And I know I want this one, and this one to be extruded. But I don't want it to be added. I want to cut material, right? So this is solid again. This whole thing is solid. It's not new. I want to create a new thing. I don't want to add to this existing thing. I want to remove it. And so it's automatically going to go, well, there's nothing to remove this way. So it thinks I want to go in this direction, which I do. What if something changes and this dimension that used to be 2.5 millimeters, right? This thickness right here became much bigger, right? Basically, sorry, what it gets back to is making precise features and dimensions, right? Because this, I don't technically want this to be cut into 25 millimeters deep. What I want is just for it to go through whatever is there, right? However thick this is, if this turns out to be 1 millimeter, turns out to be 50 millimeters, I want it to just have a cut all the way through. So I'm going to click select through all instead of blind. Right? Blind just gives you whatever depth, right? Doesn't matter what any of this is, it's blind. You can go up to next, which is also similarly what I want in this case, right? It is the exact same thing as through all, except But through all, if there was more stuff out here, then it would cut that as well. So maybe up to next is what I want. Right? You can also go up to face, and then you have to select this face, but it's the same thing. You could go up to part. In this case, you oops. You have to select the part. For some reason, this works. It says up to surface or part. So it works that I selected that surface. But the parts, the way Onshape handles parts is a little weird. I'm gonna go up to next. Right? Nothing else has changed. I'm still selecting these three. Right? Is the correct direction? I could choose a different direction. No, I'm not even gonna worry about that. This is that we don't want to offset distance. We don't want to draft. We don't want to merge with all of it. We do want to merge with this part 2. That's it. Right. I'm gonna go ahead really quickly and rename this. I don't know, rudder amounts. You can use uppercase. You can use underscores. I don't. There's some things you cannot use though, so just be careful. Probably apostrophes and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. Okay, so we have this part. Theoretically, this part will work, right? If I printed this out right now, and assuming all my dimensions are good, this will fit onto here. And so maybe we can see that. I'm gonna go ahead, and I told you I wasn't going to work in, I told you I wasn't going to show the mounting holes in this motor, but I'm gonna do that really quickly just to do it, right? Just to give you a clear picture. Right, so if I'm clicking here and there's no snap that I want this to be in line with the center here, but it's not showing up for me. So, whoops. I guess circles are a little different. If it's not doing what I want, I can click anywhere, create a circle, and then again, clicking center point, go down to what I want, which is horizontal. Technically, okay. There should be a point there. There isn't. So you can add a point, right? So this is just a point. It'll go wherever you want it to go. In this case, you want it to be, so this is the concentric constraint. So if I click here, this circle is concentric with this circle. And so if I left click now, you see that there's a point. Again, it's always going to be in this plane, right? So this is a sketch. Technically, that cylinder is kind of in this plane. Even if it wasn't, it'd be concentric with that, but in this plane. Anyway, there's our little center point now. So we can say, I'm gonna click escape because I'm still in the point. I'm gonna drag this. So I can either, whoa, right. I can either click on this and click on horizontal, just like these two. That works. Or I could have dragged this until the snap popped up, we talked about. I wanted to mention this is an M3 bolt. So there's threads inside here. I don't care about them really. I'm not gonna model that in detail. All I care about is the outside dimension is around 3 millimeters diameter. And I know again, let's see, I'm gonna create a construction line. This is just the same thing that we just did, right? So there's that, and then do the exact same thing on the other side. Again, you can choose to mirror it if you like. I personally stay away from that, but you're not prohibited from doing that. Sorry. And then I'm gonna go to equal. This circle wants to be the same as that circle, and now they are. And then this line segment wants to be the same as this line segment, and now they are. And so the overall, I just have to dimension the overall thing again is 16 millimeters. Yep. Notice there I was kind of looking at it like this while editing the sketch. That worked for me in this case. Sometimes you want to just have it like that. Should be the same. It is the same. Okay. That's a sketch on here. Doesn't do a whole lot in real life, so I'm going to extrude out a little bit. Sorry, into it, I guess you would say. It's not going to be blind. It's not all the way through the part, right? It's not like that's not what you see in the motor. It's really it is blind, a few millimeters, like 3 or 5, maybe 5 millimeters, and so it just sticks like this. So, the inside is hollow. It's a motor, but as in it's got wire windings. Yeah, don't worry about it. This is what we want for our thing. So I'm gonna come into here. You could easily have done this. So I can't drag this in real life as a part. But if I wanted to, I can edit this sketch and drag the whole thing closer down, right? And so you could get it all the way down, and you could even dimension it so that it's perfectly where I wanted it, right? Because really the dimension would be, well, this is that distance away from this bottom bit, and this is in line with the right plane and all of that. But sometimes, oops, sorry. Sometimes that messes, if these things are touching or going to be touching, Onshape will assume that you want to, it'll mess with your merge scope, right? So we talked about merging. When you're adding to stuff, I guess we haven't really used add actually just now, but it's a very basic one, right? And so then it's saying we not use add. Okay. Well, even stuff like remove, right? For removing a material, it's going to ask for the merge scope, right? So that's like, well, this is all defined, but what are you doing this to? What part, right? And so it's taking a part as an input. Right? I could either choose this one or I could choose this one, or I could choose both. That's what merge with all is. But I only want it to have this, right? So that's where this is up to next. If this was through all, and I selected merge with all, and this went in front of this, then it would go through all of it, right? So these holes would appear in there. It's not what we want. That's why we don't merge with all. Anyway, all I'm saying is when these things, like if this revolve was to revolve and it ended up kind of touching this a little bit, then it would create some confusion. And unless you were very careful in selecting your merge scope, then you might have problems. That's all I'm saying. Okay. But then, this might not be easy to visualize, right? Like how long is this compared to this? Well, I set it to be exactly equal to each other. But how much does this stick out of here? And you can know inherently, well, this is 2.7 millimeters, and this is 2.5 millimeters, so it'll stick out 0.2 millimeters. But you kind of don't know really what that means, right? 0.2 is hard to picture because it's so small. So I'm going to show you really quickly the assembly. It'll be here. It'll already be existing. Click on insert. I have not really used assembly much at all. in this in Onshape. But that's just how it is for now. So I'm going to create click insert. So this is inserting parts into this assembly. You can see if I put my mouse near where this is, I can insert it anywhere. Or if I just let it fall where it is, then it will assume that the front top right planes, the origin is in the same place as it is in the part document, which is what I want in this case. I'm gonna click OK. I'm gonna insert the other part that we have, the motor. And this one we can do anywhere, right? So again, it's gonna jump to where it is in the part document, but I'm gonna put it a little different. And now I can drag this around, right? So if I wanted to, I could just drag it perfectly correctly. It'll sit something like that. It'll be all the way in like that, and boom, there's our thing, right? I'm gonna create a mate, and it's gonna be fastened. This is a little. So basically, this little axis system pops up, and it shows basically what orientation the axis is in. If I click it this way, and also this little clock-looking thing is where it actually is going to apply to, right? So if I click on that, and I click on this, I think technically, so I should say, sorry, I can move this around all the time. I can also move this around, right? Control Z. I don't want that, right? This is nicely set into where it already is, right? The origin of this piece is in the origin of the assembly. Not a huge deal if it moves, but I want to make that fixed, and so I'm going to right click on it. You can right click it in the feature tree, or you can right click it here. I'm going to fix it for now. Now if I try to drag it, it can't move. I can still drag this one around, but I don't want this to move either, right? I want this to be fixed, right? This will be fixed using bolts to this piece. So that's why I'm using a fastened mate. There's a whole bunch of types of mates, right? So revolute mate is for it's only one rotation about the z-axis. Just read, there's these little blurbs on under these things to read how they work, and a ton of info online and all that. Cylindrical mate is, very similar to revolute, but it also moves up and down. Right? So, a bunch of different things that you can do. I'm gonna use fastened just because that's like no degrees of freedom, right? Oh, it even says removes all degrees of freedom. So it just is there, right? If I did this, so I'm clicking and it's in this kind of plane. It's concentric to this hole. If I click on that and then I click on this, boom, it automatically like connects to that, right? If this instead of fastened, if this was a revolute, right? So technically, if you use a bolt and it's not tightened down properly, this can move. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish that. So that's what exists right now. And so if I try dragging this, it will now pivot around that joint. Right? So that's why there's two of these in real life. If you have two pivot points, it can't do that. Right? And again, I guess this peg or this little step here also helps with that mounting. You're noticing that this can go right through this part, right? It doesn't recognize these. It recognizes them as solid objects, but it's a lot of computing power to actually show that interference. Um, so there's a way to turn that on, but it'll actually probably lag out. Um, Not a big deal. It doesn't really matter, but you can create limits yourself, right? So if I right click, oops, I left click on this, right? Sorry, what? If I hover over this, it keeps disappearing for me. Um, you see there's limits right there. There's offset. Okay, sorry. You just edit it. I thought you could do that from there. That's just a preview of what they are, I guess. You can create limits, right? So again, the only thing that it's allowing you to do is it rotating in this Z axis, right? That's the axis that we showed you. Uh, it's other types of mates will do different things, right? So slider, you'll have to choose more. But for now, all we care about, or all we have to do is, and we don't have to do this. But if you want to, you can set a minimum and a maximum for the axial angle. That's a weird axial Z minimum angle. Um, let's say this is 0 degrees. So that's just how it is right now. It's a little hard to see what direction it's going, right? Um, if you use the right hand rule, I assume that's what they follow, but I'm actually not sure. So let's type in 90 degrees, right? Um, you're seeing that these are in degrees. Sometimes, like they might be in radians. That's something to change up in your settings, which I can show you in a bit if you want. But 0 degrees, 90 degrees. I can show kind of a preview of that. It's not following the right hand rule, which is weird. Um, but there it is, right? It doesn't go past that, right? So if I just click select or the green check, if I'm trying to drag this further up, and I can't. I can only go this way, and it stops me there, right? And it's a little laggy, but it's not bad. Um, so I could change that to, I guess, well, first of all, I can flip that. Nope. I can change this to um -90. Nope, it wants. Okay. I'll reorient second axis. Okay. I see. So this flips the whole thing, including your part, and this is just reorienting. Right. So this is back to where it is, except yeah. Sorry, this is a little bit. Anyway, for this, we don't care about that. I'm gonna go back to here. It doesn't matter that it's off right now because we're about to fix that. So we're gonna create another revolute mate, and it's gonna be the same thing. It's just gonna be right here, and it's gonna be the close one. Okay. It was a little weird for a second there, because the preview it can't quite handle it. But it should be good. Okay. So now I can't drag this anywhere. I can't drag it this way because that stops. It's not a cylindrical, it's a revolute. Um, cool. That's very, very intro to assembly. Not even really required at this point, but I just wanted to show you. So I'm gonna go ahead and a few things, right? This going right into here, that's fine, right? It'll look like this. This is completely rigid, right? Um, in the computer, it's this could be made out of titanium, right? In real life, this could be made out of ABS or PLA or something, and so it's not going to be nearly as rigid, right? So I have a sample piece of this, and it's you can imagine um, this face, this bit right here connected to the motor is bolted to the motor, right? So if it didn't have structure before, and now it has the whole structure of the motor, this doesn't bend much within itself, right? But it bends at this point right here, and this whole thing is kind of floppy, right? There's no way to tie this down, right? So maybe I'm planning on just zip tying around it here for for now, and that's probably fine. Um, but I want to just make this more rigid, right? So one way to do that is to run an arm or a rib from here to here, and that stiffens this up tremendously, right? Um, so we're going to do that. We're going to let this sit kind of in a more comfortable place. So right now it's just resting under on top of you know, a plate here, right? Well, we could have made this out of wood or something else, right? We're 3D printing, right? So we can make whatever we want. So we might as well make a little curve for that to sit in. Um, and then I want to put some heat set inserts in here. So it's easy to mount to stuff and all that. So I'm gonna go ahead and hide this for a second because it's a little in the way now. Um, and we're gonna go look at not that. So again, I would recommend maybe putting these two in folders. Add selection to folder. We're gonna call that folder motor. All of this stuff came afterwards, and this was not part of the motor. Okay. I'm still learning how to navigate. Don't worry about it right now. um, but there it is. Okay, so sorry. We're gonna use this sketch right here. Right, that's why we had this little cutout here. I'm gonna sketch. Well, so this creates a new sketch. Um, this if I double click on it, edits this old sketch. So I'm gonna sketch right here and make that. I'm gonna carry that horizontalness over to here. Okay, I'm gonna set that to the height between the two. I'm gonna set that to, I don't know, 6 millimeters. That's it. We can keep showing that sketch if you want. So I'm gonna go ahead and extrude just this bit. And we're gonna extrude it blind, right? We're gonna extrude it. I only need maybe 5 millimeters or something there. And I'm gonna merge it with this, right? So we're merging with just this motor mount here. Great. I'm gonna go ahead and use the linear pattern, and I'm going to this is the same, similar with the mirror and linear pattern. This is the feature mirrors and feature linear patterns and feature circular patterns and all of that. Right? It you always have to check. Onshape has needs you to specify everything. So you don't want to pattern a part, right? That would be taking this whole part. It's looking for entities to pattern. So it's looking for whole parts to pattern, right? So if I pattern this, I could pattern it in this direction, right? And so we could make a bunch of these, right? Sometimes it's helpful. and you know that's great or whatever, but I don't want to do that. I want a feature pattern, right? So that's just doing a feature, just like an extrude, for example, which is exactly what we want. So I clicked on, it was looking for a feature to pattern. You can click it directly, maybe, and it selects extrude feature, or I extrude for, or I just click on it in the tree. Oops, I deselected it by doing that. Okay, the direction, um, yeah, it still wants the direction, so that's fine. Any of these lines are good. You can change the direction there. I only want two of them. That's this one and this one. And the distance is, it's a great question. I don't actually remember what I put, but it would be this distance minus the thickness of this minus the thickness of this. So maybe that distance was 47-ish, then maybe this is 37, and that'll put it right there. Actually, sorry, we can do 42. That puts us right on the edge there. We can add a second direction. But right now, if I try to click out of this, it doesn't show up. It's highlighted red here. It says linear pattern did not regenerate properly. Try selecting reapply features. So I don't know exactly what this means, but pretty much every time I've had to click reapply features for to get patterns or mirrors to work. Whatever. Um, so there it is, right? So now it's looking a little more comfortable, right? We look at our assembly. It's updated that for us. I guess this is just maybe a little bit to stop it from going left, right, kind of. Um, so we have that. We have, you can hide that sketch now if you want. You don't have to. Um, I wanted a little sketch here. So I'm gonna sketch on this plane, right? So usually if I decide I'm gonna sketch something, I click the plane already and then I click the sketch. I'm gonna do a bunch of corner rectangles. Sometimes you just have to. Well, okay, so let me do this first, and then I'll talk. So this is black, right? This is fully defined. Um, and kind of pay attention, right? Because this can lead you into some trouble sometimes. Um, this point here, I was able to let me that was kind of quick. This point doesn't exist without this extrude here, right? Otherwise, like without this, it's just part of this line, this edge, right? Um, Basically what I'm saying is if I make a point in my sketch coincident to that point, that's fine. It'll compile and all of that. Um, and it will change if I want to change this from 5 millimeters, right here. This is 5 millimeters thick. If I want to change that, then this will update with that. Right? It won't just stay in place. It will move with it. So that might be good. If I delete this, however, like fully, it won't know what to do because this is based off of this face of that extrude. Right? See, it says, oh, that's sorry, that's different. Um, so just something to keep in mind, right? You can have broken dependencies in your sketches quite often. That happens. It's a very common thing to have happen, and it makes things a mess coming back, especially looking at someone else's code. Um, so there's something to keep in mind. So my inserts are 3 millimeters by 3 millimeters cylinders, basically. So they're 3 millimeters in diameter by 3 millimeters tall. This whole thing is 3 millimeters tall already, so that's kind of nice. But we don't want. I want some space below to capture the insert. Right? I don't want it to just fall all the way through. So I'm gonna have 3 millimeters there probably. Um, if I make this 5 and 5, I think that's probably fine. Okay, it took a while, but there's 5 there. I had to mention this one 5 by 5. Oops. Mention that one 5 by 5. And then I can go ahead and put a circle right in the center of this. So it's snapping to the center of that bit, but not this bit. Oh, I didn't know you could do both at the same time. So now that's at the very center, and I can select the diameter of that to be 3. And there you go. Okay. I've told you I hate using linear and all of that for this kind of stuff. Sometimes you just have to do it. So I'm gonna mirror this, select the mirror line. I'm gonna mirror around the front plane. Now it wants me to select entities to mirror. So this, 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 and this. Technically, you don't have to do these two, I guess, but you know, and it shows up here. Perfect. Then I want to linear pattern these. I could also create a line that goes right in the center and then mirror them, both of these over that. But I'm just a little lazy, guys. So this is a linear pattern. I'm in this and it's not telling me to do anything, right? So it's kind of why I don't like, especially in Onshape, but even in other things, it's just much less editable later. So I'm going to assume that it wants me to select what I want to pattern. So all of these, right? And you might remember this is it's taking, I could have done skip the mirror and gone that way and that way, but I didn't. I only want 2 of these, right? Not the third one. And I don't really want it to continue. Okay, that's fine. This is just 1. Oh, didn't select that. Okay, so now that shows up. And this distance is 25. I'm gonna guess it's like 37. Nope, it is 37 minus 5. Cool. I guess and oh, left click is telling me left click is the green check. So I'm gonna do that. There it is. Boom. Okay, so we have that. I'm gonna extrude these, and I'm only want to extrude. Yeah, it just did that for me exactly how I wanted it. I want 3 millimeters high, and then double check that that is below this, right? Because I don't want to get in the way of the motor. So that's great. Merging with the motor scope, motor mount, sorry. Okay. So now we have this, right? I'm lost. Now we have this. Cool. There's nowhere to go, right? So I could drill these out after this has been printed, but why do that when you can easily just do it here? So I'm going to select this plane, and this is the same plane as this plane, right? These are all in plane with each other. Create a sketch on it, and it's going to be literally just a circle. It's going to be less than 3 millimeters. Oh, this is an M3. Oh, no, doesn't matter, sorry. It's going to be mentioned 2 millimeters. I have M2 bolts that will work. So this will fit on the outside of an M2 bolt. It can slip past, right? It's not threaded or anything. It's just letting it slip so that these threads in here will work well. Right. So this could even be 2.1 or 2.2 or whatever. You'll get a feel for how to tolerance these, right? So if the nominal is 2, you'll get a feel for what adding 0.1 means as you do this more. So I'm gonna go like this, and I could also extrude or linear pattern this way, but I'm gonna do it the other way. So this is just a sketch right now. I will extrude that sketch. It's gonna remove material all the way through. Great. Merged with motor mount. Done that. Yep. And I'm going to linear pattern that. So again, feature pattern. The feature is the pattern, 6 extrude 6. The direction is both this direction and this direction. Oh, can I only do once? Sorry. Let's do this direction first. 32. Second direction. That way. Distance will be hashtag motor diameter. Right? Instance count 2. Sorry, it's hashtag motor diameter minus these offsets, right? So the distance between this center point and the edge here, right? If you remember, that's centered on this line, and this line is 5 millimeters. So that's 2.5 millimeters, and then 2.5 millimeters from the edge there. So it's minus 5 millimeters. In this case, when you're subtracting things, they do want you to subtract units. Right? If I just do this, it gives you an error. Right? So 5 millimeters. Boom. And then there it is. Reapply features, probably. If I don't select that, it looks like it's working. So I guess I'll leave it like that. But don't forget, if it's not working, then try that. I don't really know what that means, but let's try it. Great. Okay. So we have this. I'm gonna have again to picture this, there's gonna be a brass insert in here that fills up this space except for some threads. And so I'm gonna have bolts coming in through this bottom right up here. And that way I can mount this. I can attach this to something. I can change the height if I need to. I can do a bunch of stuff. Great. Let's look at our assembly. That's how it looks. I'm gonna create this rib still, right? So this, having this web here, it's not even purposely a web, but it's giving it much more stiffness than if it was just this, small section here. But we're just gonna go all the way across because why not? So I'm gonna sketch. Oops, I'm gonna sketch on this plane, right, this whole thing. Create a sketch. It's gonna be a line from this corner to that corner. Whoa. It'll be a line from this corner to that corner. There, 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 there. It's fully enclosed. They extrude it this way, just like they want me to. It's gonna be an added part material. It'll be blind, but it's only gonna be like right. Like I said, like this could get away with being 2 millimeters or a millimeter. I put it at 2.5 because I want it to be rigid. This doesn't need a ton of rigidity. It is, because of its own geometry, it is rigid, right? It's not rigid like maybe in its own plane, right? Um, but all it's doing is stopping compression and tension in this direction, right? So it doesn't need to be huge for that. If we're worried, we can make it 2 millimeters, 1.5, but it's just a tiny rib. And honestly, the closer you get here, the less it's doing, right? So instead of doing all of that, so this is good, what I want. Instead of doing all that, I could have cut out a bunch of this and just left that long thin thing. But it's easier to print as a whole thing, right? 3D to 3D print. Okay, one on that one side is honestly, well, no. The mirror, it's gonna be a feature mirror. The features I want to mirror is this extrude 7, and the mirror plane is this plane right here, front plane. Oops. I'm gonna select what I'm doing, front plane. And reapply features because right now it looks red, doesn't like it. Click that and it's fine. So I don't know what that's about. And then here we are. So that's what it looks like. Kind of hard to get at anything in here, but it's you don't need to. It's just a motor. But it's fully constrained and all that. Okay, sorry, that was a lot. Please feel free to skip the parts that are actually important. Maybe at 2 times speed, whatever. But this was hopefully give you a um, a little more insight into my thought process on creating something. So this is a relatively simple part, but it's made up of multiple features. I wanted to show how you build off of that, right? Um, best practice again to rename all these things. Well, this extrude one, it does highlight stuff and all that for you, but this extrude one is like the base L. If you don't know what to name things, it's always easy to just name it what it looks like, right? So that's an L shape. This is, I don't know, I've named things funny things. They don't have to be proper names, but it's good to name them. Just like variables. You wouldn't call it variable 1, variable 2. Okay, sorry, that about wraps it up. I said really quickly about changing your units, right? Please work in millimeters and degrees. So if you need to change your units, you can go to Onshape, and somewhere here you can change your preferences to your default units are right here. It also shows how many decimal points you want to display something. This doesn't affect the actual precision of your part, right? So if I have something that's 3.1415926 millimeters, um, this is saying it'll only display the first 3 decimal points, but it'll keep that in mind. It'll keep the 3.1415926 in its head. It just won't display it. So it's nice to not have a whole string of stuff, and this actually only goes up to 5 anyway. But at the same time, it's nice to be able to look at a part and know more than just the first decimal point. Working in millimeters it's not a big deal, but in inches, right? You want at least 3, because there's an eighth of an inch is 0.125. If you look at an eighth of an inch with only 2 decimal points, it'll round up to 0.13 you'll be like, what is 0.13? That's such a weird thing. And it's not 0.13, it's 0.125, right? So, but again, please try your best to work in millimeters, especially because that's what I print in, and so makes things easier. But we should just be working in metric anyway. Um, if you know a dimension that is in inches or something else, it's very easy, like I showed you, to convert, right? Oops. Let's do this one. To convert, this is, if I know this is 2 inches, then it's 2 times 25.4. Okay. And if you want to update your workspace units, just your this document, then you can go here and you can update it, right? Okay, thank you for listening.